It's the 21st of November, 1915, and a group of 28 men are huddled together to quietly watch their ship. It had been their home for over a year now, but its time has come. They are in the Antarctic, standing on pack ice that has held them captive for months. And as they watch their ship, the Endurance, they know it's going to be the last time they look upon it. As the ice shifts, the Endurance shudders before slowly sinking below and into the watery depths. Moments later, the ice would shift again, closing up the gap once held by the Endurance, leaving no trace behind of their former home. Now trapped on the ice, the men must face the impossible task: survival. This week on Cheeky Tales, it's the story of Ernest Shackleton and the doomed voyage of the Endurance. Happy Easter, everyone. John's got the eggs.
I'm being an egg.
You are being an egg.
Being an egg.
Take that hat off.
Egg.
Egg.
Low blow. Unnecessary.
Very funny.
Very funny, but unnecessary.
It is Easter Saturday when we're recording this, and we've all got the Easter chocky sillies. So far, Sean is now onto his, I want to say second egg.
Third
egg. We only opened them like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know.
Huck us an egg.
I do.
Oop. All right. Yeah, so the Endurance. Not an Easter time story. Oh my God, cut that out.
I feel like you've done this story.
We've talked about Shackleton before.
We've talked about Shackleton. We've talked about the South Pole. And that does get referenced. Would you like me to begin?
I feel like you've done an episode where their ship sinks and they get stranded.
Oh, that was
You're thinking of the whaling one.
The whaling ship.
The Moby Dick story.
Yeah, but I thought it was in the ice as well.
No, that's...
You're thinking of a few stories that we've done that are
Yes.
quite...
So you've done.
And also you've probably heard some of this story before, and there are some islands that are in this that sound kind of like whaling islands, but they're not.
Okay. Please continue the story you've already told before.
Let's kick off. Set sail. If you're a long-time listener of this show...
Raise the anchor.
Good one. You would know that this is not the first time we've heard the name Ernest Shackleton. Thank you, boys, for teeing that up. In episode 18,
You're welcome.
The Race to the South Pole,
18.
originally... I know, every time I look back through our
71
podcasts...
episodes ago.
Every time I look back, I'm like, that was that long ago?
Yeah.
Your Titanic was like my third episode.
Yep.
That's 60 odd sessions of me sitting here listening to you knuckleheads.
Well, no, you weren't in all the original ones.
I know, that's why I said 60 odd.
You could write an episode once in a while too, you know?
I do.
Got him. He's got at least one a year.
I do. I always have at least one a year.
So that episode was originally uploaded in February of 2022.
We've been
It
doing
is
this for a
now
while.
April 2025. So we learnt that Shackleton was an Antarctic explorer who once held the record for the furthest south latitude reached by an expedition.
I was just going to say, if you're a new listener, welcome. You've got a lot to go back to.
Yeah, you got 98 episodes of back filler.
Speaking of new listener, I had a request at a get-together the other week that we Twitch stream some of our episodes occasionally so people can live comment.
Oh, God.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got to work out how to do that.
Yeah, like Twitch stream the live recording. That's actually dangerous, though, because that includes all of us doing inappropriate bits that we cut out. All of the horrific content that you don't see.
All the accents that we cut.
Yeah.
We could possibly do that for episode 100.
Yep. All the culturally inappropriate stuff that we say in an episode.
How are we going to video switch? We'd have to just do the wide shot.
Just do the wide shot, and then you could have the chat on the TV.
Or just multi-camera.
Yeah.
No,
we can't do that because we got...
Just the wide shot.
Yeah, that's how we'd do it.
That's what the live stream would be.
Yeah.
Just the live.
Anyway,
yeah.
Get ready for that to be a Pete route. We're not going to do that. Maybe we will. Who knows?
Who knows? How many people can call in?
Bet your Cheesy's not wearing a shirt
shirtless
right now.
Cheesy. Definitely call in.
Hang on.
Are we doing shirtless Cheesy?
Hang on.
No, I think he's at the Easter show. Maybe.
Shirtless?
I'm pretty sure he'll have a shirt on. He sent me a video of a goose before.
Are
so I
you
think
sure?
Let's save that for episode 100 if you've not already called him.
If he is wearing a shirt, can we make him take his shirt off? The Easter show.
Oh, he's got a shirt on. Bye.
Boo, hang up on him.
Boo.
Hang up.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, after that interlude, before his time as an explorer, Shackleton was once just a wee baby. Born in Ireland in 1874.
Aren't we all?
We all begin as a wee baby. He would move to London when he was 10, eventually finding his way into the Merchant Navy in 1890, spending 10 years working on various merchant ships until he would find himself intrigued by an upcoming expedition to the Antarctic.
Did you miss a G?
What?
Yes, the Antarctic.
Oh, did he say intrigued or intrigued?
All I can think about is Antarctica now.
It sounded like you said intrigued.
I may have, but okay.
I just
My squirrel brain is gone. I'm all like, yes, Antarctica.
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 Is that where the wind bender comes from?
It is where the wind bender comes from.
This would be the Discovery expedition, where he would work alongside Robert Falcon Scott,
Great name.
one half of the eventual race to the South Pole that we covered,
Bobby Falcon. Great name.
gaining his knowledge of the Antarctic and starting his journey towards running his own expeditions. While Shackleton would be part of the successful attempt to set the then record south latitude reached, he would also be so sick after returning to the ship that he had to be sent home from the expedition.
Scurvy.
I think it was just from not eating properly and constantly marching and stuff.
That sounds like scurvy.
Maybe. So you may remember, if you have listened to that episode, Robert Falcon Scott dead not long later. He died on the race to the South Pole.
He did.
Still a great name.
On his return to England, Shackleton would spend a few years failing to invest well in few companies, getting married, and generally living the life of a guy that should probably stick to what he was best at, exploring. He would eventually get the idea to run his own expedition and put in place plans to do so. He would round up some money and got himself the lead on the Nimrod expedition. I know, great name. This expedition would have the goal of reaching the South Pole, and while it didn't quite reach this goal, the first ascent of Mount Erebus, the reaching of the furthest south ever, only 180 k's from the South Pole, and the daring return in a race against starvation would make Ernest Shackleton a famous man on his return. Shackleton would take part in a number of speaking tours, earning money that he would eventually lose in other business ventures. This guy, he kept earning money from doing expeditions and then being like, I'm going to invest in this, and that thing would immediately tank.
Yeah. Invest in the beta tapes.
Yeah. Betamax.
Betamax,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Zune.
Yeah.
I think that's going to win out. HD DVD. Anyway, we've just talked about a bunch of dead stuff. While he would express publicly that he didn't want to return south, he would privately express his desire to do just that.
How do you know then if it was private?
Because he sent letters to people.
Okay.
Yeah. After the disaster of the Terra Nova expedition and the loss of Robert Falcon Scott, so that was the one we covered in episode 18, and the success of Roald Amundsen, his mind would settle on an attempt to cross the entire Antarctic continent through the South Pole, crossing from sea to sea. Seeing that this was the last great object of Antarctic exploration, he would gather the money required to mount the expedition. He would also place an ad in the newspaper looking for men with the enticing text.
Ooh,
Men,
saucy.
well, no. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful.
I mean, that would get me. Wouldn't that get you? That sounds so enticing.
Honour and recognition in case of success. Ernest Shackleton.
In case of success.
It is disputed whether that was real or not, but I mean, it's really fun.
What an ad in the paper. What are they classified? Classifieds?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a classified.
Missed connections.
Yeah. Wow.
I saw you on the shore.
Got me.
Maybe join me for South Pole.
I saw you with frostbite. Want more?
You've got some toes to lose. So not exactly the most enticing offer, but thanks to his fame and probably the lack of the invention of the TV and internet, he had no problem filling his crew.
What else are you going to do?
Exactly. What are you going to do? Stay there and be in the war? Shackleton was known to have a pretty eccentric interview method, with some people hired based on their ability to sing, others based solely on how they looked. Shackleton was a believer in the idea that the crew needed to be able to have fun and be friendly. not just be capable for the journey.
So it was a classified. You look good and you can sing.
You're hot,
in
good pipes,
Yeah.
see pole.
Yeah. I hope you meant that because otherwise that's great.
I did mean that.
Yeah. Come see my pole.
Come see the pole. Yeah. Next up would be the boat to get them there.
Ship.
Sure. Endurance comes into view.
I felt like running then.
What?
Ship, sure.
Come on, man.
We should play Ship to Shore.
Two things. Ship to shore. Very fun game. Secondly, you know it's a ship because a ship can...
A ship has little boats.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
A ship can carry a boat. A boat can't carry another boat.
What episode did we cover that in? Was it the Moby Dick one?
We've probably
One
covered
of our
that.
nautical
No.
episodes.
It was the Patnella.
That's the one. Endurance
Just
was not.
so many ships.
So many.
We've done
damn
a lot of ship episodes.
nautical-
Here at Cheeky Tales, we give a ship.
nautical tales.
Ship, yeah. Endurance.
Cheeky noughts.
Cheeky noughts. Floaty tails.
Oh.
Endurance was not the first name of this great ship.
H2O, just add cheeky.
That's the winner.
That's the winner.
My daughters watch that show. It's terrible.
It's so bad.
It's
no,
awful.
Cleo. It's so bad.
Is that what that's from?
That's what that's
Yes.
from,
Oh, ow. Oh.
mate.
Okay, I'm glad that I know
It's
that now.
awful.
Cleo, the condensation.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
But my girls love it.
It's good.
So the Endurance was first known as Polaris and was built for another explorer who turned out to be too poor. As it was a specialty vessel built for Antarctic exploration and little else, it was hard to find a buyer. With its ability to break ice but lack of a cargo hold, it wasn't suitable for whaling or sealing. And so when Shackleton came kicking tires, he was sold the ship at less than cost price.
Oh, bargain.
Yeah, I know, right?
I can't believe you're not talking about the extremely specific type of ship that it is. Are you just glancing over that?
What do you mean? The fact that it's a wooden ship?
No, the fact that it's a barkentine.
Okay. You want to go ahead?
A barkentine, alternatively, a barkentine spelled with a K because this is spelled with a U, or a schooner bark, is a sailing vessel with 3 or more masts with a square-rigged foremast and a fore and aft-rigged main, mizzen, and any other mast. While a
Sounds
fully
like
rigged
some-
ship is square-rigged on all 3 masts, the bark is square-rigged except for the mizzen mast. The barkentine extends the principle of making only the foremast square-rigged, so that's the front one. The advantages of a smaller crew, good performance before the wind, and the ability to sail relatively close to the wind while carrying plenty of cargo made it a popular rig at the end of the 19th century. So basically, for all you simple listeners out there, if we just think of a big pirate ship with like the 3 big square masts and think of a small sailing ship with like a little one that angles with the wind a little bit easier, square at the front, angled cool sailboat ones at the back.
Okay, I understood that last 10 seconds.
I love how you complain about how many nautical themed episodes we do, and then the second you get a chance to explain a ship, you're like, yeah,
It's called steering into the skid,
going with the wind.
going with the wind.
The Sea of Thieves things makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
Well, why I like it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love it. Is it time for cheeky plays of Sea of Thieves?
It might
It
be.
could be.
Hell yeah.
Cheeky sales.
Cheeky sail. Sea of cheeks.
I don't want that.
Sea of cheeks. Okay.
That also was a Rick and Morty episode, wasn't
Whoopsies.
I think so, yeah.
it? Sea of Cheeks, the fart
Whoopsies.
planet.
So, it would the Polaris would be rechristened as Endurance before it finally launched and was ready to take to the seas.
Mm-hmm.
It would be one of the last wooden ships of its time, sporting 3 masts and 3 boats for journeys to and from land. Those 3 boats will be important.
I think I like Polaris better as a name.
It is a good name.
Mm.
Yeah.
The boats are important.
What does that mean? Polaris.
Oh, geez. Hang on.
While
I've got
he does
15 tabs open.
I believe there is a star system called Polaris
Yeah, probably. And a metal band and a type of car.
and a buggy.
Yes.
Cops use them.
What is a Polaris? It's a star located in the constellation Ursa Minor, or the Little Bear. It's positioned near the North Celestial Pole, the point in the sky where the Earth's rotational axis appears to point.
Yep.
Right.
This makes it a crucial reference point for navigation, as it appears to stay relatively fixed in the night sky while other stars rotate around it.
Okay.
So he's the ocean dude. I'm the space dude. Well, you're the space dude.
I'm the space dude. You're the star dude.
I'm the far outs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite.
No.
the middle, but it's pretty close. When you look at like a little rotational map, it's like
And that would make more sense because this is where they're going. They're going to that pretty much directly underneath Polaris.
no, they're going the other way.
It's the North Star.
Is it the North Star? Is it?
Yes,
He did say that very clearly.
Northern Circumpolar Constellation.
Endurance would leave Plymouth on 8th of August 1914
Great car.
and would leave its last port of call, a whaling station on the island of South Georgia, on 5th of December 1914, sailing away towards what would become a historic voyage. The voyage begins. Things got weird very quickly, with a stowaway found on the 3rd day of the voyage. He'd snuck on board with the help of 2 other crew, one his friend and another who believed the ship didn't have enough men on board for the voyage. After being found, the stowaway, Pierce Blackborough, would get an absolute mouthful from Shackleton, complete with the question, do you know that on these expeditions we often get very hungry, and if there is a stowaway available, he is the first to be eaten? To which Blackborough replied, they'd get a lot more meat off you, sir.
Damn!
Shackleton seemed to like that, hiding a grin and saying he should meet the cook first. Blackborough would turn out to be a pretty useful steward and eventually became an accepted member of the crew. Almost immediately, Endurance and her crew would be met with pack ice, and progress was painfully slow, averaging less than 60 kilometres per day. By the 15th of January, the ship would be just 370 kilometres from its intended landing spot on the Antarctic mainland, and by the 18th, they were just a single day's sailing from that destination. Unfortunately, though, the pack ice had set in so well that the ship was stopped and trapped. And worse still, the ice wasn't thick enough to allow them to walk to shore. So it was thick enough to block the ship,
But not thick enough
not
to walk
thick
on.
enough to walk. No matter...
Send old mate Stowaway out. Yeah, find us the path.
Yeah, you find the holes. No matter how hard the crew tried, they couldn't break free from the ice, and it became clear that they would be forced to stay in the ice for months, possibly even through the whole winter.
That would suck. It's not thick enough to walk on, but it's not thick enough. It's
Yeah.
too thick to break. That's
Yeah.
how unlucky is that? Like, surely there's not that much difference. Like, that's a small, like,
Yeah. It'd have to be like a couple of inches of ice,
Yeah.
the difference, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with like pack ice is not like one
Solid.
piece.
No, it's
a
just-
whole
yeah.
bunch of icebergs that are just together.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of the problem as well. In late February, there was a glimmer of hope with the 14th of February, Love Day, starting with the crew noticing an open channel of water just 400 metres ahead of the ship. With the Endurance sitting in young ice, just 2 foot thick, the crew would attempt to cut a channel long enough to give the ship a run up to break the ice. After hours of work, they had a channel that was 140 metres long, and attempts were made to ram the ice with the ship under steam power. So this thing had like a steam boiler as well as the masts. In a bitter blow for the crew, the channel they had cut was too short to get enough speed, and with just 370 metres of ice left to get through to open water, the ice had shifted, so that 400 metres had kind of changed.
Mhm.
They were forced to give up on the attempt and submit to the Antarctic winter. On the 17th of February, the sun dipped below the horizon and it wouldn't be seen again for the next 6 months. So if you don't know, Antarctica gets 6 months of darkness, 6 months of sun.
sun goes,
Pack ice is also called drift ice. It's large pieces of ice that are not attached to the shore.
If you know how they live in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Tokyo drift.
Fast ice, even though fast ice sounds like it's ice that moves fast, is
Yeah.
actually short for fastened ice. So it's fastened to the shore. Versus drift ice, sometimes known as pack ice, is large pieces of ice that is not to be confused with flow ice, which is something else
That
entirely.
is a mistake I make all the time.
yeah.
Pack ice is just large chunks that drift across the sea that aren't fastened to the shore.
Right.
Further offshore in very wide areas, encompasses ice that is free to move with currents and winds.
Walter White over here.
Iceman.
Heisenberg.
Wasn't that meth?
Mhm.
That's not ice. Is ice meth?
Ice is crystal meth, dude.
Oh.
Because it looks like
Right. I
ice.
didn't know that. I thought they were two different things.
No.
Well, drug talk.
Has he not watched Breaking Bad?
Probably not, no. It's not that easy to watch.
Get on some Breaking Bad.
You're not going to like it.
I might. I like
won't-
Bryan Cranston.
You won't like it.
Why do you say that?
because the first season is so slow, you will get irritated.
I did tried to start watching it.
Yeah, how far did you get?
Probably 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, you won't even remotely feel like you're invested until the second season. There's too many bits that just
Hate that.
it's too slow.
I hate shows that are like that. Like, I'm going to get through the second season.
And Jesse Pinkman,
But it is worth it.
I don't think he'll like it.
Through March, the crew would be forced to endure continual darkness and increasing boredom. As March moved through to April and May, the pack ice kept moving them further north away from their destination.
Oh, that'll hurt.
Yeah, if you ping me with one of them in the eye, ow.
The tooth.
He's talking about Easter eggs. John was trying to convince Sean to
Sean's
chuck
just
an egg at
eating
me.
his 6th egg.
So they're moving further north with the ice,
Mhm.
and as the months dragged on, they would do anything they could to keep up morale, including dice games, storytelling, and lectures. They would hold parties, and generally try to do as much as they could to stay happy. They somehow kept their sanity and their camaraderie, and as September rolled around and the sun returned, it looked like they might finally have a chance to escape. So just keep in mind, this is like 6 months.
6 months of darkness. Like, they wouldn't really have any timekeeping, would they?
No.
So they
got,
just-
like, watches and stuff.
They just go to sleep when they're
Yeah.
tired.
Like, that is 6 months of just darkness and not even having anything to do on the boat.
Mm.
Like, there's nothing to do. You can't hunt anything. You can't, like...
Scrub. That poop deck would be so clean.
As you might have expected, the ice started to melt as summer rolled around.
Oh, surprisingly.
But this was actually disastrous for Endurance. As the ice broke apart, it meant that huge icebergs would start to move around the ship.
Big jaggy boys.
Yes, big jaggies. Pushing it in different directions and from different angles, eventually starting to crush the ship where it was trapped.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. The sinking. While the crew...
Sinking.
The sinking. While the crew thought that the Endurance would be strong enough, as we know from the introduction, it was not.
Yeah, okay, so now this is where the name becomes an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Should have left it as Polaris.
Yeah.
Should have left it as Polaris.
Why you don't call something the unsinkable ship?
Unsinkable 2.
Mm-hmm.
I now must be nice working alongside the river with a view of it.
I love how he did it to himself first.
There's like quite often I'll see like pleasure craft go past.
Mm.
The number of them that are called the whatever 2 always intrigues me.
What
Like, did
happened
you
to number
sell
1?
and buy a new one? Or what happened to number 1?
I think that's what happens most of the time.
Mm.
But it's also nice to think there's so many leisure captains out there that are
Just ramming into stuff and sinking.
sunk their first ship.
Yeah.
Boat.
On the 14th of October, there was a brief window where it would be in open water in between the ice for the first time since January. But as the days progressed, the ice set back in, and on the 18th of October, Endurance would be pushed to a 30-degree list. And as the days continued, the ice started to put pressure on it once more. By the 27th of October, Shackleton had given the order to abandon ship, and a day later, while retrieving supplies, they found that the ice had penetrated the hull, and it was all but lost. So by this point, it's like crushed and there's water in the bottom of it. It's only being held up by the ice. And they're like trying to get all their supplies
Get
out.
the buckets out.
Yeah. Over the next month, more damage was done to Endurance, with its masts eventually failing on 13th of November.
Okay, well, maybe it's starting to live up to its name a little bit now.
I mean, it did last a month in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like in a sinkable condition.
Mm. This was actually captured on film, and you can watch it on YouTube. Find the link in our link tree.
Interesting. Why don't we have it up now?
So many photos as well of various stages of the ship being trapped in the sea ice. It's really impressive. One, even a night shot for all you film nerds out there.
Yeah, I want to know how they did that.
Just awesome. That's
Yeah.
how. Probably a fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like the ice
But
was
it's
thick
like,
enough that
it's
they could
well
stand.
lit.
It's well
like
lit.
it's got spotlights on it.
Yeah. Well, they were already
Yeah.
taking long exposure photography because it was wet plate.
It's pretty cool. Like in the 1910s,
Yeah.
they were able to take so many shots of this thing and even film footage of it collapsing
A stable wet plate photo at night with
on ice.
on ice on a large format camera with a wooden tripod.
That's tough.
If you don't think that's cool, then chew big red gum. That's what I say.
By the 21st of November, the crew could do nothing but watch as the ship slipped beneath the ice and into the water, eventually realizing that they would need to make for shore. Earlier, they had attempted to go by foot with sledges pulled by dogs and the 3 remaining smaller boats dragged by hand.
They've had dogs this whole entire time.
They had
as well.
dogs the whole time.
Yeah,
And a
right.
cat.
Oh, nice. What was the cat's
Yeah.
name?
It was like Mrs.
It's Mrs. Chippy.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was
Yeah.
the carpenter's cat.
Yeah. Nice.
Who was also a male cat,
Yes,
Mrs. Chippy.
Mrs. Chippy.
Okay, not so nice.
Yeah. I didn't.
Why
cover
not
it.
Mr. Chippy?
I didn't cover it in the story, but they had to shoot Mrs. Chippy in the head. Yeah.
No.
And all the dogs, including puppies.
Oh.
It's really sad. Yeah. They're like, oh man, our life is really bad right now. We don't have the food for these dogs. And one guy's like, you're not shooting my dog. Eventually he had to shoot the dog.
There's actually a picture of Mrs. Chippy on the shoulder of Pierce Blackborough, the guy that stowed away on the ship.
Yeah. It's a really nice looking cat. It's really sad they had to shoot it.
Now I'm sad.
Yeah. So yeah, they're trying to drag this stuff around, but they'd only made a single mile of progress in a day. Shackleton would
Good.
decide
Shoot that cat.
Shackleton would decide that they should make camp on the ice and hope that within the 3 months within the 3 months of supplies they had, they would drift towards land and find open water they could launch the boats from.
It's actually a sculpture of Mrs. Chippy on the grave of Harry McNish, the carpenter of the ship in New Zealand.
They would set up a camp on the ice and assign tent partners based on crew personalities, putting the optimistic crew with the pessimistic crew to try and keep their spirits up.
Yeah, I can see how that would work, but it could also go
Yeah, the
the other
pessimist
way.
drags the optimist
Yeah.
down. The men would hunt wildlife on the ice and generally continue the good times they had started while trapped on the Endeavour.
What are they hunting? Seals, penguins?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And but by late November, it was obvious they weren't moving on the ice. They might be stuck here for a long time. By March of 1916, their provisions are running very low, and the crew would need to start taking drastic measures.
Where they shot the animals?
Yeah, I think they'd shot them by this point.
Okay.
They'd shot Mrs. Chippy by this point because they were confident that Mrs.
I know.
Chippy. Yeah, they were like, they didn't want, they were like, Mrs. Chippy's not going to survive this. Like, it's just unkind. So,
Yeah.
Can we just cut all the really miserable bits about
It's
Mrs.
so
Chippy?
sad.
No, it has
Include
to stay.
the fun stuff. It was
Oh,
called,
yeah, the fun stuff just stuck on the ice with nothing to do.
they
for
named the
ages.
cat Mrs. Chippy because he followed the carpenter around like an attentive wife.
Okay, that makes
Hence,
sense.
shorthand for
Mrs.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Mrs. Chippy has his own
His own Wikipedia
Yeah.
page.
Hmm.
Yeah. Brilliant.
The desperate march for survival. Unfortunately, as always seems to be the way with these stories of the Antarctic expeditions, it's the dogs who found themselves shot. I did cover this. Oh, God. They would be shot in late March after the food provisions had run too low.
This is an optional bit.
I don't know if Kirsty will hear this, but if we get the third cat, Kirsty, let's call it Chippy.
Mrs. Chippy.
No, just Chippy, because it's a boy cat.
By April, the ice pack was starting to break apart and was still heading out to sea. Shackleton would make the call to launch the boats and try to make for land, but after a day of sailing, they would need to settle down on another ice pack that they found. So I don't know if I mentioned, but they had 3 like littler boats that were on
Yes,
on
you did
endurance.
mention it. Yep.
Yeah. They would rest for the night, but with one of the men falling into the water and needing to be rescued, it was clear they needed a more stable solution. For another 2 days, they would sail, finding no land or stable ice, and finding themselves even further from land than when they began. Things were not looking good for the crew, which miraculously hadn't lost a man, despite only sleeping once in 4 days, all their clothing starting to freeze solid from the water and snow, and frostbite setting in. So at this point, all of them are still there.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
That's impressive.
Yeah. The boats themselves were starting to be coated with ice.
Nick minute.
Well, we'll find out. The boats themselves were starting to be coated with ice, which needed to be beaten off them with the oars, as otherwise the boats would sink under the weight. Considering how far north they had travelled, Shackleton would direct the 3 boats to sail for Elephant Island, an uninhabited island hanging off the top of Antarctica. By this point, they had run out of water and were no longer able to eat the food provisions they had because their mouths were so dry they couldn't swallow it. As they continued to row, pushing through their exhaustion, one of the 3 boats would start to drift away, with the men too weak to fight the currents, and Shackleton would watch helplessly as they did so. As night fell, the 2 remaining boats would continue to row for Elephant Island. So one boat's just, they can't fight the current. They're gone.
I've been in a similar situation. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So school camp, we're at Wivenhoe Dam doing canoeing and kayaking and stuff like that. We ventured out. I was in a single kayak, having a great time. Just powering it through, going through all the guys in the canoes and all that because I'm in a kayak, super speedy, whatever. On the way back, I got put in a canoe with a special needs fellow student. And there was a storm blowing in. So I'm at the back of this canoe trying to just power this canoe. We had like some of the provisions as well, just not going anywhere against the wind of the storm. And the person at the front was not helping.
Yeah.
So I tried using a kayak thing to try and do it. No, we end up having to make a raft with 2 canoes and then someone else on the other side.
Yeah.
We got back, but man, it was tough.
Yeah. You understand how weak you are as a human when you go up against nature like that.
The storm wasn't even there. It was just blowing in.
Yeah.
And I'm literally just oaring away and like going nowhere.
So miraculously, in the morning, they were able to see Elephant Island. And even more miraculously, they could see the 3rd boat again, which had made its way back to the island despite the men's exhaustion. So they'd managed to like loop around and make it back. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Good job.
Yeah, so still no deaths. They would all tumble out onto the beach they could land on.
And because they were so weak, they shot them.
This is for Mrs. Chippy.
Sean's down a rabbit hole.
So they would tumble out onto the only beach they could land on and spent the next few days getting their bearings and gathering what resources they could.
So like a sand beach or an ice beach?
Well, I think it was just a rock beach.
Okay.
Yeah. By this point, it had been 497 days since they had touched land.
Sheesh.
Yeah. And the effects on their bodies had been immense. Frostbite was taking hold, and obviously they were all dehydrated and starving. One of the men had a heart attack not long after landing, but survived and made a recovery while he was there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just like they just can't die. Like they're in the worst conditions and they just won't die.
What's that episode of the show where it's like, I can't die? I feel like that's...
Oh, yeah. Is it the acid guy? In
Maybe.
Rick and Morty, you think?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And then immediately dies.
Yeah. It was clear that with nobody knowing they were there and the difficulty of getting there was no hope for rescue. Shackleton would realise that he would need to be the one to save them, and so gathered up 5 of the most able men and one of the boats and plotted a course for South Georgia.
All these other ones that we've had where one group goes off, it never works out.
No, they all die.
They all die.
Yeah, but if you can see the size of these boats, they are tiny.
Oh, I imagine they're
6
like
men on it.
dinghies.
But they're being reinforced.
With the bones of dogs.
Now, the carpenter. The carpenter made them better.
Mr. Chippy.
He straightened them. He made the sides higher, and he built a little deck. Might even be poopy.
There is a...
I'm intrigued now.
John hears the word poop deck. He's like, hell yeah.
Oh, poop. I love poop.
I love poop.
I'm the poop master.
I don't even know what the poop deck
Poop man,
does.
John.
What does the poop deck do?
I don't know. I think it's the same as a tween deck.
That doesn't mean anything
I know.
either.
I figured I'd make it more ambiguous.
Is a tween deck just in between child and teens?
The poop deck.
Sure, I'd like that. I thought it was pretty crap, but whatever.
A poop deck is a partial deck above the ship's main after deck located at the rear of the ship, often serving as the roof for the after cabin. Once again, picturing typical pirate ship, it's the bit where the steering wheel is.
That's the poop deck.
That's the poop deck.
Why is it called the poop deck?
It's from the French word poupe, which means stern. Which is from the Latin word poopus.
Everyone assumes the poop deck is where you go to the toilet.
No, it's poop from the French word poop with an E from the Latin word poopus, which means back or stern or rear.
Okay. Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Poupe.
Well, next time we're playing Sea of Thieves, when I'm up on the wheel,
The poopus.
I'm on the poop deck.
Poopers.
Poop.
Poop.
I'm pooping it up.
Poop.
There is
French,
actually a
it's
photo of
perfect.
this boat being launched with the 6 guys. It's tiny.
It's a very good photo.
Yeah, I would not want to be on this thing.
It's actually a pretty terrifying photo. Like, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
This
Also,
is where everyone begins to
go
die.
back to Elephant Island.
Sure.
2 of the 3 species of penguins that appear on Elephant Island are chinstrap and macaroni penguins.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Both brilliant names of penguins. If you're a macaroni penguin and you listen to Cheeky Tales, hit us up at Cheeky Tales Pod on Instagram. If you're a chinstrap penguin, go to hell.
Sean's got beef with chinstrap penguins.
Yeah, Sean
Okay.
only likes macaroni penguins.
So
Anyway.
they're plotting a course for South Georgia, which is 1,300 kilometers away.
Yep.
It's actually much further than the closest, which is 800. But the way the winds were blowing, Shackleton's like, yeah, we're not making it there. We're going to make it over there.
I'm going to say Aaron gets into one more paragraph and then they start dying.
Okay. The Southern Ocean isn't exactly the safest ocean. So as the men left on the island watched Shackleton and the other men sail away, it must have felt as though they were watching a man sail to not only his own death, but their deaths. So he's the only one doing anything to try and save them at this point. After watching Shackleton sail away,
Poop deck.
what is it?
I dropped the egg.
Oh no,
He dropped a little poop.
my egg.
I dropped our egg.
He dropped an egg.
Eat it. Eat it.
Our egg.
What number egg is this?
I'm so glad that I got caught on camera. That was impressive.
Oh, I could do higher.
We're not doing that. After watching Shackleton sail away, the men left on the island would settle in to what could be a very long stay. They would turn over one of the boats and build a makeshift shelter under it. Though with the amount of cracks in it, they would spend most of their time plugging holes to keep out the wind. I don't have enough fingers. They would hunt for penguins and birds and would generally try to make the best of their time.
I couldn't imagine eating seagull. Be a bit gamey.
Bit gamey, yeah, full of chips. To make things harder, though, many were starting to be affected by pretty serious health conditions.
Yeah,
With-
heart attack.
Yeah, teeth needing to be pulled, heart attacks to
Ooh.
recover from, abscesses forming, and infections forming in many wounds.
Ooh, the teeth. The teeth thing got me.
Blackburrow was the worst, though, eventually needing to have his foot amputated thanks to frostbite. The surgeons and the crew had to amputate his foot in June of 1916, doing so in the upturned boat. Blackburrow would take his 55-minute surgery well, waking up full of jokes and generally recovering well in the coming days and weeks.
So they had anesthesia.
They had ether and
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Reminds me of old mate in the research station in Antarctica. Yeah, heard that story?
The guy that they think might have been murdered.
No, he performed his own appendectomy.
Oh, yeah.
He was the doctor on the station and he had appendicitis and he had to cut his own appendix out.
Oof. No thanks.
What a baller.
Yeah. Tough move.
I learnt that story when I applied to go down there. That was one of the stories in the application.
You may have to perform surgery on yourself.
No, it was more like once you're down there for the winter, there's no boats. You have to be there for the winter. So,
Yeah.
And that was what the story they said. Like this guy was down there. There was no coming to get him. He had to do it. Cut his foot off.
Yep. So he's
Woke
cut
up.
his foot off and he's woken up. He's having a good time.
How many paragraphs you been through so far?
That's one.
Okay, so now they're going to start dying.
As winter set in again and darkness fell, the men were starting to lose hope that they would ever be rescued. On the Shackleton boat, things were just as bad. They were sailing through huge waves, having to chip away at the ice on the boat and dealing with a complete lack of food. Nobody was able to sleep well, if at all.
Did anyone lose a foot though?
No.
So I wouldn't say it was as bad.
They weren't able to sleep as the sleeping bags were soaked through and the constant churning of the water made it difficult to settle. They were still on course, though it's hard to believe how with the conditions. Eventually, miraculously again, on 6th of May, they would spot land. They would make it to South Georgia after another night floating around just off land as the weather was so bad they couldn't make it in close to make landfall. Can you imagine that? Like you can see it
Yeah.
and the weather's just pushing you out for an entire day. Eventually, the weather abated and they were able to sail in, doing the near impossible and making it to land again. Unluckily, they were on the wrong side of the island, and yet another arduous journey was needed.
Okay, yep.
So this is a massive mountainous island.
Yep.
The only option left at this point was a 3-day trek through uncharted mountains.
Jeez.
Shackleton would take 2 men, leaving the other 3 with the boat. They took a stove, a pot, fuel, 3 days of food, matches, 2 compasses, binoculars, 50 feet of rope, 1 axe, and a diary. What?
Wasn't an axe.
What was it?
It was an adze.
That's the thing that's like,
It's a garden hoe.
yeah, there you go.
It's just a big garden hoe.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's for like digging stuff.
Yes, but originally it was used to like smooth huge chunks of wood like a plane or a chisel.
Is it? No, so it's
It
like
looks
like a hoe, but it's
yeah.
not like a flat one?
No, not like it. You swing it on a handle
Yeah,
like
okay.
a hoe. Yeah,
Mm.
a garden hoe. It sort of eventually just became a garden hoe. As other tools were invented, they needed it for other stuff. They're like, oh, we can use it. For gardening.
I often see the flat shaving one they use for making cricket bats. It's kind of cool.
Mm. They would not be able to stop and sleep, or they would freeze. What?
Nothing. I just like continue. Thank you for my interjection.
So they wouldn't be able to stop and sleep, or they would freeze.
Objection, Your Honor.
I knew he was going to call it an axe. I was prepped.
And so they would start trekking through the mountains. He knows me. Stopping only shortly to gather their breath. They would get lost and have to retrace their steps multiple times.
Oh, jeez.
They would have to cut their way through ice and climb over
More
uncharted
ice?
mountains. Yeah. On the third night, they would eat the last of their food and kept slipping asleep. After rousing themselves, they would get up and make their last push into Stromness, a whaling station, making it there on the 12th of May, 1916.
No one's died yet.
Nope.
Objection.
My childhood home
Mm.
was on Stromness Street in
Oh.
New Zealand.
There you go. Not the same place.
Exact same word.
Mm.
The street was named. Yeah,
Spell it.
Stromness. Stromness.
Very good. You passed. That is correct. I know because I can also spell it.
They would stagger up to the foreman of the whaling station and introduce themselves, making him the first man to learn of the horrific expedition. They would go around and scoop up those other men that were left on the other side of the island, but it would take 4 attempts to get a rescue ship down to Elephant Island. And after months of trying, on August 30th, so remember they landed in May, took until August to get a ship to Elephant Island. The men remaining on Elephant Island would watch as a boat was lowered from the rescue ship, and Ernest Shackleton made his way to land to bring them home. It had been an unimaginable journey, and somehow, despite all the odds, not a single man would lose his life on the expedition.
John
Gotcha.
is bored. He's like, no, not enough people have died.
Where's-
I want death.
You killed the damn
You
cat.
killed the cat. Where's the
I
cannibalism?
want blood.
I deserve blood for
I want
Mrs.
blood.
Chippy.
I want cannibalism. I want mutineers making their own community on an island.
What a boring episode. Why'd you pick it? Nothing's happened. They got stuck into ice for a year and a half and went home. Whoop-de-doo. There you go. I've summarised the episode.
Yeah, done. How long did it take to record this? He just did. Yeah, that's the intro.
In the years that followed,
No,
Shackleton
no.
That's
You
pretty
had your
much
chance. You had your chance, and you dangled the carrot, and
What
you
a-
duffed it.
an amazing story of survival, and you're just like, I want someone to die.
Yeah,
This is some delayed April Fool's garbage.
You've got to have some
like-
conflict in a good story. There's no conflict. There's no...
Yeah, they
As
all-
per
they all
Kim
just
Jong Il,
kinda had
as
a
per
good
Kim
time.
Jong Il's book on the art of cinematography, a great story and a great movie needs several things. Number one, the struggle, which we've got. They need to come from the struggle. Secondly, lots of songs. We've covered that. Thirdly, someone needs to get married. I was robbed of that privilege. No one was married. And then lastly, they got to
Hang
return
on.
to
We
the
had a
struggle.
marriage. We had Mr. and Mrs. Chippy.
Sure,
Shackleton got married.
not during the story.
He did.
Not during the story.
He did. I mentioned it. I said he got married.
That's the prehistory of the story of the Endurance. Anyway, so let's include Mrs. Chippy as a unofficial and weird marriage to the carpenter, Harry McNish. Anyway, lastly, they've got to return to the struggle. But no one. They're all okay.
Yep.
Kim Jong-il will be horrified.
What does that say?
Something about Lenovo. It's fine.
This is the book you bought me, mind you.
Yes. Communist Sean.
Dead straight.
Comrade Sean.
Comrade Sean and free market capitalist Aaron.
In the years that followed, Shackleton would continue chasing fame and riches through business investments and further expeditions. He would die just 6 years later
Too late.
on an expedition to circumnavigate the
Yes.
Antarctic from a heart attack.
Damn straight. Too late.
He was buried on South Georgia Island. It would take 107 years for the Endurance to be found. After many failed attempts to locate it, a team would find it at the bottom of the Weddell Sea. There is a cracking documentary about the attempt to find it on Disney+. Not an ad. That is absolutely worth the watch as it covers the expedition and discovery.
107 years. What's that, 2023?
2022.
Okay.
No.
You were in 1916 and you said 107 years.
Yeah. No, it sunk in 1915.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The rest of the crew would go on to lead either to live out normal lives, continue to explore, or take part in World War I, which was being waged at the time.
So you're saying when we started this podcast, it hadn't been found?
That's right. It got found while we were doing this podcast.
Cool.
Not
That's
this
something
specific
interesting.
episode.
No.
But between the one that we did on the South Pole before and this one, they found it.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Still want some death.
The voyage itself would be well known, but it wasn't until books started to be published about Shackleton in the 1950s and 60s that his and the Endurance's legacy would be grown. To this day, Shackleton is considered one of the greatest Britons ever to live, and definitely as one of the greatest explorers of all time. And
He didn't explore anything. He got stuck in the ice off Antarctica and then went home.
he did tons before that.
Yeah, okay. Fair
He was part of the first.
he was famous. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the story of the Endurance and Shackleton.
There's even whiskey
Yeah, they found some
after
whiskey.
his name.
So if you want the short version, they went to go to one place. They got stuck. They shot some animals. Some of them left, come back and rescued him. They all went home.
Yeah. Great story of survival. Just not enough death for you, I guess. Next time we'll do that plane that crashed in the Andes.
Considering one of the other episodes you brought me, that was cannibalism and like...
All right, we'll do the plane that crashed in the Andes.
You've brought us 2 cannibalistic stories.
What was the other one? There was the whaling vessel.
Whaling vessel. And was it the Oregon Trail? Wasn't there cannibalism?
Yeah, the Donner Party. Yeah.
The Donner Party.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll make it a round 3 and do the Andes plane crash next.
Shackleton whiskey is a purpose-built recreation of the type of whiskey that Ernest Shackleton took on his journey. And
Where do you get it from?
lots of different places. A contribution is made from the sale of each bottle to the Antarctic Heritage Trust of New Zealand.
Let's get some for the podcast.
So the South Georgia, I think it's Stromness or the other one, or whatever.
Griffigan.
Yeah, that one. It's they don't have anybody that lives there permanently, but they do have an Antarctic museum there.
Oh, you know.
It's not Stromness. That's totally abandoned. Very cool looking town though. Very cool looking town.
I actually think it might be Stromness that had the Antarctic museum on it.
What's the Pripyat?
I'm pretty
In
sure
Ukraine?
it's Grytviken.
Is it-
Grytviken is a hamlet in South Georgia in the South Atlantic, formerly a whaling station, largest settlement on the island, located at the head of the King Edward Coast.
Is that the town in
Bay.
Ukraine that's like overgrown and stuff?
Pripyat's the one next to Chernobyl, yeah.
Yeah. So is it the island like that? Like it's just been abandoned and it's like kind of...
Yeah, because
not
it was
fully-
a whaling island. So
Yeah, it's not fully abandoned though, because Grytviken is actually inhabited by 3 people in the summertime.
So sometimes.
So it's
And that's
also not
where-
easy to get to.
No,
So we
and
can't visit.
it's also where Shackleton is buried,
yes.
All right.
and Frank Wilde are both buried there.
I was going to say, otherwise we could add it to the Cheeky Tales World Tour list.
Anyway, that is the story of the Endurance and Ernest Shackleton. John was not pleased. Next time I'll do a much more gory episode for you.
Of course I'm not pleased. They shot the cat and the dogs.
They're shooting the dogs.
And the cats.
Anyway, next week will be a special episode for us. Next fortnight. That is our
Episode-
100th episode.
Yeah.
We're not 100% sure what we're doing, but we've got a good idea.
Not 100% sure.
Mm,
We're 99% sure.
but it will be a special episode. It probably won't be a normal story. So tune in for that. We'll be celebrating our success. But we will see you then. It has been lovely to see you. Good night.
Good night, Chiquitos.
Thanks for 99 wonderful episodes.
Thank you for your service, Mrs. Chippy.
R.I.P. Mrs. Chippy.
R.I.P. Mrs. Chippy. You've been listening to Cheeky Tales Podcast. If you'd like to see supplemental images related to our episodes or to interact with us about our episodes, hit us up on @CheekyTalesPod on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch our episodes on YouTube or listen to them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.